right, so what we are going to do using Make Code Editor on microbit.org, you are going to create a new project. I have already done that. Mine is called Step Counter 3 because I've already made a couple of different step counters. Once you are in, we are going to remove the forever block, and I will use the on start block. And the next thing I need to do is I need to create a variable. Now, because we're measuring steps, I have created a variable called steps, and to do so, all you do is click on make a variable, write the word that you want to create, and hit OK. So I have already done that, so my 3 popped up. So the first thing I want to do is set steps to 0 and show number 0 because that is the number of steps we are going to take on start. Now that set of blocks is safe and done, so I'm going to put it off to the side. But basically what it is reading out is when I start my microbit or when it gets power, the steps will set to 0 and show the number 0. The next thing we are going to do is we are going to grab a gesture icon. So again, adjust your C block. That will be, so whenever I shake the microbit, it will do what's inside. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to go into variables and it's going to change steps by 1. And the reason we want it to do that is we want it to count up, but we also want it to tell us how many steps we've taken. So we're going to say show number. And we don't want it to show number 0, and we don't want to constantly change that number. So we're going to change it to show number of steps. So I'm going to go into variables, grab the steps, plop it in. All right, so now what this reads out is when I start my microbit, it will set my steps to 0 and show the number 0. Then when the microbit shakes, it will change steps by 1 and show the number of steps I've taken. Now, the very last thing I want it to be able to do is I want a reset button. So I'm going to grab this. Now, I don't want just a button A pressed because that could happen very easily, or a button B pressed because that could happen very easily. I want to click both A and B to reset it. And I want to use the same ones I set on start because that's how it's going to reset. It's going to set the steps to 0 and show the number 0. Okay, so I really like my code at this point, but if I tested it out, the shake is not very accurate. It sometimes shakes and sometimes doesn't. So in order to make it more accurate, we're going to change a couple things. Now I really like what starts on start. We're going to leave that the same. And I really like my reset button, so I'm going to also leave that the same. Those ones don't need to get changed. It's really this shake gesture that's causing us all the problems. So just because it's not as accurate as it could be. So I'm going to throw that away and grab my favorite block, the forever block. Now the reason the forever block is my favorite is it just keeps checking the code over and over and over and over and does not stop ever for anything. So we know it will constantly be counting our steps if I've got that active. Now, the next thing I need is I'm going to make the computer do a little thinking. So that means I need to go into logic and grab a conditional. If a statement is true, then it will do this. Now, the second I put that in, you'll notice on my trial microbit, on my example one over here, it's going to start counting up because I haven't told it anything to do. So automatically everything it does is true. So now let's tell it what we need to do. We want it to notice acceleration. We want it to notice movement. And we want it to compare to a number. So for that, we're going to go into logic and find a comparison because again, it's comparing a number. So I'm going to grab this comparison and put it in this thing. Now, right now, if 0 equals 0, then it can start counting. Well, we don't want it to be 0 equals 0. So we want it to notice acceleration. So I'm going to go into my input and grab acceleration milligravity and put it in that circle. Then I'm going to change it to the strength of the milligravity. Now I can put a number in here, say 1500 to start with, and it will be, you can change its sensitivity to more sensitive or less sensitive. But this is the code for the more accurate microbit step counter. Now, I'm going to read through the code just like I would is if had completed the code in Python or any other coding language, because you always read top to bottom. So when my microbit's powered on, it will set the steps to 0. Then it will show the number 0. On button A and B pressed, it will set steps to 0, show number 0 to reset. If I'm not just starting or I'm not pressing A and B, it will do this. Forever without stopping, it will check the acceleration strength. If it equals 1500, then it will change the steps by 1 and show the number of steps. So you can see over here by wiggling it a little bit, you can see that it does count. It is much more accurate on the microbit itself. So it is hard to show this way on here. It's very easy to show the reset and some of the other buttons, but it is hard to show on here. But once you download it to your microbit, you should be able to have a very accurate step